Hey, look who I cornered, my buddy Mark LaLiberte. Mark, how's camp been for you so far?
It's always great. After is my 18th one, so they're always wonderful, and I always appreciate all the knowledge and the people who come to share. Such a great experience.
That's incredible. 20 years of this camp, and you've been to 18 of those. Hey, Mark, I've been asking a bunch of people at camp, what are the hot topics in building science? What are 2 or 3 things that you feel like are a big deal in our kind of building science world these days?
Well, unfortunately, we're still dealing with some of the fundamentals. I guess, the idea of managing water on the exterior to the interior is still a problem, which creates these challenges with mold and durability of buildings. And we need to get that off the charts quickly so we can move on towards improved thermal enclosures, as we know is part of the basis. So moving in towards improved building assemblies, exterior insulation, all the things that we know matter, is really all part of this whole mind share of what we're trying to all accomplish. As we saw recently, ideas about air sealing and all the critical functions. So water and air and moisture are still become the fundamentals of what we need to do.
Boy, no doubt about that. And to piggyback on that, one of the questions I've got for you is a hot topic that seems to be bubbling a lot in the Austin market where I am, is mold. I've had 2 clients that have specifically come to me for new projects. They're going to build a new house, and mold was their #1 topic they wanted to talk to me about. What's your thoughts as we talk about this mold issue? And if you were going to build a new house for somebody that was particularly mold sensitive, give me a couple paths that I should go down.
Well, I think it's a great and important issue only because it creates a sense of fear, of course, right? We understand that we are fearful of things that seem to be harmful, and whatever those are. We know that in order for mold to be growing, it takes the moisture and a food source and the right temperature range. And so part of this is really trying to ensure that we insulate on the exterior of enclosures, if you do many of your projects, to make sure that those wall cavities stay warm and above the potential for mold growth. We also make sure that the flashing, as I mentioned just a moment ago, is so well done. Extraordinary flashing details, and managing condensation, managing water intrusion takes care of those concerns. And so I think all of those require us to look at the design, wall to roof interfaces, the critical spots, window connections to buildings, sloping of sills. All of those still are fundamentally important. But for a client concerned about mold, those really become the issues of managing water and moisture, good dehumidification, as you do all the time in Austin. Each one of those things, managing the moisture levels and the food sources, really improve things. We also talk about getting rid of paper-faced gypsum, which happened to be talked the other day, making sure that when places are adjacent to moisture problems, we eliminate again the food source. So I think all of those mold things can go away so easily as long as we manage the fundamentals.
And what do you think about alternate building systems? You know, in those conversations with those clients, very early on, they wanted to immediately go right to, hey, Matt, what's your thoughts on insulated concrete forms and SIPS construction, all these other different methods besides kind of standard frame construction?
Well, I think that all building assemblies that we're seeing in the market, SIPs are around for 50 years. ICFs have been around for 40 for sure. But if we look at each one of those methodologies, they all require the same respect and fundamentals to physics. And so I think all those assemblies work beautifully. As you've been experimenting with exterior insulation, we know that the connections and components that meet the building, all the penetrations, windows, how do you match them all up, still require us to do that. So I know that there's lots of great options for doing that. All of them have some strong economics when it comes to saving energy, and really each one of them offsets by a difference of a few hundred or a few $1,000s, but we're not talking about tens of thousands in most cases. So each wall assembly, I think, as you've proven so many times, really works well as long as all the details are done right. So I actually like all of them. One of the comments we've heard at the conference here, and Joe says all the time, what's your favorite type of insulation? And we say more. I think that's a good strategy.
That's for sure. Last question on the hot topics issue, Mark. I feel like spray foam has been talked about a lot in my marketplace and generally these days by builders, architects. It seems like more and more people are interested in finding out, hey, is spray foam potentially toxic for me? What can go wrong with spray foam? And then there's others that you hear out there that spray foam is the panacea. It solves all your problems. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I don't think any products are ever the panacea, so I'm always careful about those things, as you know. And I think anytime we mix chemistry on a job site in a truck with sometimes untrained workers, the risk for exposure to toxicity increases. So I would say that foam's got some great places for use. I like certain attributes of foam in certain places. I think there's other places where foam probably doesn't perform as well as we need it to. But in all cases, all products, as we know, are only as good as they're installed, and the careful level of training. Foam requires a high level of training because it's a fairly complicated process. Two-part mixes, temperature controlled and pressure controlled. That requires a very professional team. And I think that if we don't have professional people carefully trained and always watching equipment, care of equipment, then we're going to have problems. And the foam industry will take a beating for that. So the idea is going to say to the foam industry, get your training well done, get the details done, make sure you're always calibrating equipment, that you're always careful about the substrate. What's the receiving substrate look like? What is the application temperature? As long as those things are carefully done, I think foam has its place in buildings. And I think there's lots of other insulation methods, as I just mentioned. You know, there's lots of techniques, lots of ways, and more insulation is better. But I think that each person should experience and check to see local trade skills, get referrals and references, making sure we're really watchful of what the toxicity levels could be, should it be there, if it's improperly mixed. All the foam guys will say, we're fine as long as it gets done well and mixed correctly. And I think that we hear that all the time. So be careful, be watchful, and be always aware of what the opportunities and the risks are. And I think if you do that, you'll make some great decisions. You mentioned someone who's sensitive to mold. If there's somebody much more chemically sensitive, they might look at a more benign source of resources. So I think that's a great way of looking at all of those pieces.
Yeah, and I think, I've been learning from you for the past 15 years now, there's not just one method to skin the cat. When we're talking about insulation, if you've got somebody who's mold sensitive or chemically sensitive, there's 100 ways we can insulate a house, inside, outside, a mixture of both, SIPS panels. There's all kinds of things we can do. So I think the bottom line for builders watching this is talk to your clients, find out what's important to them, make sure you know the systems and how to do the details right. And that's what you're always preaching, is doing those details right. Choose good products in your house and then install them correctly and think about it. Make sure that the crews are trained, and check your references, check your crews. When it comes to spray foam, you're looking for a contractor that this is not his first rodeo. You want somebody who's been around the block, and the same with a guy on the job, not just the boss.
I think it's a great point, as you just mentioned. Check in every market, the trades vary. You'll find in one market a great cellulose contractor, in another market a great fiberglass contractor, and I've seen markets where there's great foaming contractors. But we should all do our due diligence, because we can't just assume that someone who recently bought a truck understands all the implications. As we saw just a short while ago, really knowing your market, really knowing what you're doing matters. So check references, ask people, go look at work. If the work looks inferior, don't use that trade contract, regardless of price. And as you know as well as anybody else, price does not govern performance. Yeah. And so really watching out, make sure that you do the right decisions, make the right choices. And as you said, there's so many ways of making a building efficient and thermally perform well. Just make sure you're doing your homework as you do. You're very careful of your trades, making sure that they're the folks that you want, they're safe, and they take care of their crews, and generous.
Yeah, and last point on that, Mark, when I started my construction business, I spent literally days and weeks driving job sites, looking at trades, seeing what work they'd done in the past, because past performance is an indicator of future performance. And a bunch of those guys that I found 10 years ago are still, probably 70% of them are still with me today, because they did great work back then. They're still doing great work, and that's a missing component. People are not checking references, and beyond just making a call, driving out to the job site and seeing it. That's a huge tip for the builders or modelers out there.
It's also that you've held a high level of accountability. And I think when you say, here's the bar, and there is no compromise, this is what I expect, this is what you'll do, and as you drive people want to do good work. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, today I want to do a crappy job, but they might say, today I'm going to do whatever I did yesterday. Yeah. When we accept mediocrity, we continually get that level. So as you've always raised the bar and what you expected from your trades, they love to come work for you because you've set that bar, and they appreciate craftsmanship and workmanship. And once we drive those expectations, people really look forward to coming in and being extraordinary at what they do.
I totally agree, Mark. I totally agree. Hey, Mark, if someone watching this wants to learn more about you or get trained by you, how can people see your work?
Well, we've worked on Construction Instruction, which is our app online, and we've got tens of thousands, really 100,000 people almost have downloaded the app, and it gives you a way to learn information in a free sense. So the app is available in all formats, and it's free. So that's kind of the ways you're on there, and we've loved sharing your stuff on the app as well. So it's a great place for people to begin learning the building science stuff, and from there, keep on going.
Man, thank you, Mark. What a fun time to see you. We'll look forward to seeing you next year at Building Science Summer Camp number 21 in 2017.
And at IBS in Florida.
That's right. IBS Florida, not Vegas this year. I'll see you in a couple months.
See you soon.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.